Hello everyone. So in my last video I talked about how Trump had warned on Twitter that he was going to bomb Syria, and he ended up doing that a few days later. So I wanted to give an update as to that situation. And so Trump launched airstrikes against Damascus, which is the capital of Syria. No one was killed in the attack, but 6 Syrian soldiers and 3 civilians were injured. And we supposedly hit a chemical weapons facility, but I've been seeing conflicting reports as to what really happened. The OPCW, which is the Organization for Prohibition Against Chemical Weapons, cleared Syria of chemical weapons in June 2014. They say that the site where the bombing occurred was only for pharmaceutical research. That's also according to the people that worked at this site. It's the claim from the Syrian government. And then people were able to stand there with no suits or masks the next morning, which they say would have been impossible if it were a chemical weapons facility. It's really hard to know who to really believe, because the narratives in the mainstream Western outlets, so not just American media, but like the BBC or anyone that's like our ally, it's all the same narrative. There's really hardly any dissenting voices. Excuse me. It's all we hit a chemical weapons facility for sure. Assad is most certainly guilty of the chemical weapons attack, but I've just not really seen much conclusive evidence to that effect. I'm just going to wait and see what it says. I'm skeptical of both sides at this point. And there were reports, like you see in RT, and I saw 3 articles that basically were pointing out that, this was a pharmaceutical research facility, not a chemical weapons facility. But I had a little bit of doubt, because it was basically 3 articles, and they were from different outlets, but they had the exact same text and everything, and it looked that made me think it was a little bit suspicious. It could have been, I don't know, propaganda. And then one was from Chinese media, and nothing against the Chinese here, but just I don't know exactly if there's an agenda there that maybe that they'd want to paint things a certain way. But look, one of the most important facts, and this is not disputed, is that the investigators, the people from the OPCW, they were due to arrive at the site of the alleged chemical weapons attack. They were due to arrive the day after Trump decided to bomb Assad. And, I'm not saying it couldn't be a coincidence. Maybe Trump just didn't know that. Maybe he's that dumb or or not informed, whatever. I just don't think it is a coincidence, to be honest, because that really just seems to me like the U.S. rubbing it in people's faces, we're gonna deal with this on our own. We shouldn't be doing things unilaterally, and we've been doing that all the time, of course. But this is just it's salt in the wound, really. We can't let normal justice and due diligence take place. We have to act prematurely and attack Assad before there's even been an investigation. And suddenly the argument becomes well, should we have done this? And it's no longer about can't talk today. The legitimacy of the who was behind the attack and what evidence there is. Many political pundits who were very ardent supporters of Trump, including Tommy Lahren, Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, these were people that I don't think before this they had anything that dissented from Trump. They were against these strikes. I mean, Alex Jones had a meltdown on YouTube over this. The videos are amazing, to say the least. But it's really incredible, because when they give the reasons why they're against it, it's because they want Trump to keep his campaign promises to get us out of the Middle East conflicts and invest more of our resources here to fix our own problems, pretty much. And also, it's a pretty dangerous escalation with Russia, and even Iran, you could say too. But they aren't in favor of this, and that strikes me as a principled reason why they're against it. I can't really know for sure that that's what they really feel, but they can at least piece together that, Trump said he was going to get us out of the Middle East wars. He said that they were horrible mistakes and all that. And he lambasted Obama, like I said in the previous video I made. He went after Obama hard for being in Syria. So they're able to see the hypocrisy, and also be just the fact that he portrayed himself as the anti-war candidate in comparison to Hillary. Like he was inconsistent on the campaign trail about this. He also said things like we have to kill the families of ISIS. He was pro-torture, but in comparison, he did say, I'm the anti-war candidate. So that's it. I want Trump to do what he said in this instance. He said he was not going to involve us in these conflicts any further and fix our problems here. But of course, you can't expect the right reaction from the establishment Democrats anymore. It's so beyond hope at this point. They really end up trying to push Trump to the right, and it's abysmal, really. So Malcolm Nance went on MSNBC's Joanne Reed's show. Malcolm Nance is someone who came from the intelligence community, and now he's kind of like a political commentator. I couldn't find I don't know, what exactly his political affiliation is. I know he's like super against Trump, and he even showed up on Bill Maher's show, who we'll talk about next. But Malcolm Nance strikes me as someone who's kind of like a Clinton Democrat. Like just a neoliberal, run-of-the-mill establishment type Democrat who, when it comes to foreign policy, is very hawkish. And what he said, he lamented the fact that no one was killed in these strikes. Like, that's ridiculous, right? But just to show you that I'm not just reading into that. This is his real quote. If you're going to really do this type of attack, you're going to have to make it tough. You're going to have to get the people that are in there. This was sanitary. We killed no one. We didn't even damage their air defenses. Look, this is supposedly on the liberal network, MSNBC. They're not a liberal or left channel. They're a partisan Democrat channel, and that's very different. The Democrats, they're moving to the right. I mean, you could probably point to a lot of other areas where they're moving to the right, but foreign policy, I don't think you can deny it at this point. It's just a fact. They're pushing Trump to, put more sanctions on Russia and who knows what else. I mean, there was one Democratic strategist that said not too long ago that we should be bombing Russia. Come on, man. And in Syria, I mean, the most criticism you get is that he's not going to Congress to declare war. Well, and you're practically encouraging him to do that and to go and declare war officially, which is that's pushing it to the right. I mean, I'm sorry, but that ends up being the truth. If you're calling for that. So Bill Maher said that Trump did the Syria strikes to cover up collusion with Russia. He also was, I mean, it was, I think, part of his opening monologue, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't watch the original clip, I just read the quotes, but he basically implied that he wants to do this to cover up the Stormy Daniels thing as well. I believe he had made those comments before the strikes had actually happened. But, regardless, he did make that point. He's like, yeah, I want to distract from Stormy Daniels. And look, I don't know what Trump's really thinking, but I think it speaks to something that Bill Maher, he just won't come out and oppose it. He has to find some roundabout way to be against Trump, but he's not against the strikes himself. He won't specifically say that. So it's like, oh yeah, this is like Operation Desert Stormy, ha 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 ha. But look, if you want to claim yourself as a lefty here, I think you need to actually be against the strikes and unequivocally so. Say, yes, we shouldn't be there in the first place. And Bill Maher, I mean, he's like basically another Clinton Democrat now, so he strikes me as someone who's basically like, oh, we shouldn't have been there, but now we're there. And maybe I'm reading into that, excuse me, but I've lost most of my respect for Bill Maher. Nancy Pelosi demanded on Twitter that Trump get authorization from Congress and hold Putin accountable, saying he has to get another authorization of force, right? And throwing in that Putin line is just come on, you're using this as a political tactic here, and I don't know, maybe it works to some degree because a lot of people believe in the Russia hysteria, but I don't think it's going to be enough to pull through the midterms. I'm legitimately concerned about the Democrats. I have a feeling that they're going to gain, they're going to gain something out of the midterms, but I don't think it's going to be the landslide victory that it could be, and they're going to try and probably paint it as such. I just haven't seen that they're serious about being a progressive party and that they've learned the lessons of the 2016 election, which is you basically just painted yourself as the lesser of two evils. And they did that without actually legit saying that, but it's all coded language. It's all basically I'm more qualified. That was the argument the whole time. So let's go to The Guardian, and I'm going to provide more examples of Democrats supporting this, so that you see, I'm not just hyperbolizing. I'm not just freaking out over nothing here. People who, well, one of them at least that I actually respect is really not being strong on this issue. This is from Ben Jacobs in The Guardian. The airstrikes launched by Donald Trump against the Assad regime met a mostly positive reaction in Washington on Friday night. Many Republicans applauded the strikes, while Democrats mostly focused their attention on the lack of congressional authorization rather than strikes themselves. And in a statement, House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi said the latest chemical weapons attack against the Syrian people was a brutally inhumane war crime that demands a strong, smart, and calculated response. One night of airstrikes is not a substitute for a clear, comprehensive strategy. So let's pause there. You're telling them you got to do more. This was a big escalation, and look, Russia said that there was going to be consequences, but then they backed off. How many times can we do this until they retaliate? It's I feel like it's just a matter of time, and we're gonna keep our military there, and it just makes zero sense because they paint it in this way, like this is kind of like the same framing that Malcolm Nance had. It's oh, if we bomb them, if we kill people like Malcolm Nance wanted, If we do that, then Assad's going to suddenly do exactly what we want him to do. They want Assad out, so it's like he's going to resign or something. Like what? Like it's not going to happen. Like you're not going to get the results you want from bombing. It's because what happens is they get more emboldened, and they say like we're going to stand up to the U.S. when we do stuff like this. So it's just ridiculous. This was echoed by Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, who said in a statement, "A pinpointed, limited action to punish and hopefully deter Assad from doing this again is appropriate, but the administration has to be careful about not getting us into a greater, more involved war in Syria." Well, this is like a contradiction, because like it sounds like he's being reasonable at the end there, but he's saying, limited action to punish and hopefully deter Assad from doing this again is appropriate. But is it the U.S.'s place to just do that unilaterally? No, it's not. It's unconstitutional because of the fact that Congress has to approve it. That's true. But, again, in terms of getting the results that you want, it's not going to do that. And we've been involved in the Middle East for decades. And it's all been, under Obama, it was basically like we were there under the same authorization of military force from the Iraq War. So I just don't. I feel like I'm like a broken record at this point. But just we shouldn't be there. And this idea, like pinpointed limited action, it's not that precise. It's really not. 90% of drone strikes don't hit their intended targets. That's according to our own data. So I feel like that's probably a conservative number, to be honest. It might even be higher. These comments were similar to those of Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, oh boy, who tweeted, chemical attacks in Syria are horrifying and a clear violation of international law. You know what else is a clear violation of international law? Attacking a country that didn't attack you. But let's keep going. The world must hold Assad accountable for his violence against the Syrian people, and the U.S. should be part of a planned, coordinated, multilateral effort. We shouldn't be involved militarily there, because we need to figure out the fact that it's not getting the results that we want, so we have to work with other countries to get the result that we want diplomatically, and it's not an easy thing. It's just ridiculous to think that it's a matter of just playing war games. These generals. I'm not against people in the military here. I think that they're stupid or anything. But if you're coming from a neoconservative perspective, where you just think basically throwing more money at the military and getting deeper into these conflicts is going to solve the problem, it's just not. Are we going to occupy Syria forever? Because once you get Assad out at this point, there's no plan after that. You're going to have terrorism rise as a result. And that's a point. This is a point that people don't make in the Western outlets. It's that when we attack Assad, we do embolden terrorists. And when we did the strikes, ISIS, basically, they saw an opportunity to start attacking. So we acted as the Air Force for jihadists in that instance. Isn't that lovely? But of course, we don't support terrorism of any kind, and Iran is like the biggest supporter of terrorism, according to a lot of these right-wingers. So Elizabeth Warren, this is it's not even strong at all what she said. She's not saying that we shouldn't be involved at all. She's saying we should be involved. She added, the Constitution gives Congress the power to authorize military action. If Donald Trump wants to expand American involvement in Syria civil war, he must seek approval from Congress and provide a comprehensive strategy with clear goals and a plan to achieve them. And as I said before, you're not going to get a comprehensive strategy, so just stop asking for for that from Trump or the Republicans. What they're going to keep doing is the same thing they've always been doing. It's like you think the Democrats, instead of just like providing a comprehensive strategy, is like, what does that mean exactly? Just explain to me what that means. You're going to do what? You're going to bomb Assad so much that he resigns again? Like, I've already made that point in this same video. Her comments were echoed by Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, who said, "I'm deeply concerned that President Trump continues to conduct military operations without any comprehensive strategy or the necessary congressional authorization." You know, same old thing. And then I'll just add these last, like, 2 paragraphs. Key Republicans expressed their support for Trump's actions. Speaker Paul Ryan said in a statement, "Tonight, the United States has taken decisive action in coordination with our allies. We are united in our resolve that Assad's barbaric use of chemical weapons cannot go unanswered. His regime's unconscionable brutality against innocent civilians cannot be tolerated." Senator Jim Inhofe of Oklahoma even went further, saying tonight was yet another example of how President Trump, the United States, is once again standing up as the leader of the free world. Senator John McCain said, "I applaud the president for taking military action against the Assad regime for its latest use of chemical weapons and for signaling his resolve to do so again if these heinous acts continue. I am grateful for our British and French allies for joining us in the attack. However, the 2008 Republican nominee did sound one warning: airstrikes disconnected from a broader strategy may be necessary, but they alone will not achieve U.S. objectives in the Middle East." What are our objectives in the Middle East? Well, why do we have any say over what goes on there? Like, because we attacked them? Because we entered into a war that we shouldn't have? And, you know, it's just... I'm talking about what these Republicans are saying because it illustrates a point about how... and this is true for the left, too. Trump seems the most presidential to people in the mainstream when he's the most hawkish, and that's scary. This is, you know, true. This was true for the Syrian strikes we did against the Russian Air Force that happened last year. Brian Williams was on, I believe, NBC, and he was like, "Oh, the bombs." The missiles look so beautiful in the sky. It's all like pretty lights. Like, really, dude? Really? Fareed Zakaria, who's on CNN, was saying that like that night, the night that we bombed Russian like an airstrip or whatever, he was like, that's the night that Trump became president. For what? It just makes no sense to me. But we're escalating further and further with Russia. I mean, it's not even... most people recognize now that we're like at basically like a second Cold War with Russia. And this is somehow great. You're going to paint the picture this is great and we're standing up to Russia. And it's... we have a lot of problems here that we want fixed. And this is, you know, this is exactly what Trump was saying that he would do. Is not get us deeper involved in these conflicts and waste money that we don't need to and fix the problems that we have here. So hopefully I don't have to talk about this issue for at least, you know, I don't know, a few more videos because I am starting to get repetitive and I feel like I have to do this because there's constantly things that change. You know things that happen like Trump ended up actually doing the airstrikes, so I have to come out and address what happens and what people say, and this is all part of holding politicians accountable. But when they say stuff like this, like even Elizabeth Warren, like you know, this is not the only issue where I disagree with her on, but it's getting to the point now where I can't really support her. She's not a strong progressive, really, anymore, which is sad. So now let's go to The Intercept. Glenn Greenwald wrote a great article about the DNC's lawsuit against. I don't know who they didn't sue, to be honest. They sued. I'll just read it. Okay. The Democratic National Committee filed a lawsuit this afternoon in a Manhattan federal court against the Russian government, the Trump campaign, various individuals it alleges participated in the plot to hack its email servers and disseminate the contents as part of the 2016 election. So, Donald Trump Jr. was included there, Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, and I believe that's because of that meeting that they had in July with like a Russian lawyer that yielded nothing, by the way. They met because of the promise of basically dirt on Hillary, and they got there and the Russian lawyer talked about like adoption laws, like wanting to change, basically like we'll give you the dirt on Hillary in exchange for changing your adoption laws, the U.S. And the meeting didn't go anywhere. But it's so bad that we went with a foreign power to get dirt on, or Trump did to get dirt on the candidate he was running against. Even though Hillary did just that with Ukrainian officials, and the Steele dossier. I mean, look, it's starting to come out like the Steele dossier. It's not a very reliable thing, but it's not entirely BS. But it was commissioned by basically Hillary, and this is like, it's like practically like you're propagating right-wing media by saying that it's. But look, Hillary has shady connections with foreign countries. This is no secret. So to act like we have to only go after Trump for this, I think it's ridiculous. So the DNC also sued WikiLeaks for its role in publishing the hacked materials. Though it does not allege that WikiLeaks participated in the hacking or even knew in advance about it, its sole role, according to the DNC's lawsuit, was publishing the hacked emails. The DNC's suit, as it pertains to WikiLeaks, poses a grave threat to press freedom. The theory of the suit that WikiLeaks is liable for damages it caused when it willfully intentionally disclosed the DNC's communications would mean that any media outlet that publishes misappropriated documents or emails, exactly what media outlets quite often do, could be sued by the entity or person about which they are reporting, or even theoretically prosecuted for it, or that any media outlet releasing an international campaign memo is guilty of economic espionage. Now, I want to read this paragraph. This is from the actual lawsuit. WikiLeaks and Assange released and transmitted DNC trade secrets, including confidential proprietary documents related to campaigns, fundraising, and campaign strategy. So, look, and it says, like, each release constituted a separate act of economic espionage. So, look, I mean, trade secrets. That, you mean the fact that you, like, rigged the primary in favor of Hillary against Bernie? Like, trade secrets. Those were their own words. You know, I have to bring this up again because they act like, oh yeah, like they tarnished Hillary's reputation. Well, that was her own words. A lot of people say that the things were doctored. None of what WikiLeaks gave out was doctored. There were other people out there that probably were putting out fake stuff, but WikiLeaks, that was all real stuff. So they never want to talk about what the content is in the emails themselves, and the fact that it's not necessarily incriminating, but it shows that they're unethical and that they're not fair and they're not running a fair campaign. So there's never any talk about that. And let me just make a quick point before I continue. Like, this is another reason why I'm really scared for the Democrats' chances, because this is what Tom Perez shows that he wants to do with his time. Basically, you know, he got into chairman of the DNC, went on a fake unity tour with Bernie. There's been no real adoption of progressive policies. Chuck Schumer came out recently and said, we're going to, I want to try and decriminalize marijuana. Well, that's great. You know, I'm in favor of that. However, like, it's not enough. You need to do more than just, like, social issues. You have to really address economic issues and foreign policy issues. And it's not populist at all, and that's what you need. So it is extremely common for media outlets to publish or report on materials that are stolen, hacked, or otherwise obtained in violation of the law. In October 2016, 1 month before the election, someone mailed a copy of Donald Trump's 1995 tax returns to the New York Times, which published parts of it, even though it is illegal to disclose someone's tax returns without the taxpayer's permission. In March 2017, MSNBC's Rachel Maddow did the same thing with Trump's 2005 tax returns. Let me skip some of this. Some of the most important stories in contemporary journalism have come from media outlets obtaining and publishing materials that were taken without authorization or even in violation of the law. Both the New York Times and Washington Post published thousands of pages from the top-secret Pentagon Papers after Daniel Ellsberg took them without authorization from the Pentagon, and they won the right to publish them in the U.S. Supreme Court. Obama wanted to go after WikiLeaks, but they couldn't, because in the case of Chelsea Manning, she leaked videos or a video of U.S. soldiers killing journalists and first responders, and that's obviously a war crime. And so that happened, and Chelsea Manning leaked the video to WikiLeaks, and then they released it to the public. But the problem is that there was no proof that WikiLeaks helped Chelsea Manning get that video, just that Assange published it through WikiLeaks. So that's press freedom, because, and look at what the Pentagon Papers. That was a release that came out that basically showed all the atrocities that we committed in Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos. We were bombing in those countries, and we shouldn't have been there to begin with. Especially because there was no authorization, in Laos and Cambodia, and it was a big deal at the time. But regardless, we shouldn't have been in Vietnam either. But yeah, we were committing atrocities, and that information was classified, and Daniel Ellsberg was in big trouble for that at the time. But the press is allowed to report on classified information because that's in the public interest. That's what the First Amendment's all about. So the fact is, there was no proof that WikiLeaks helped Chelsea Manning get that videotape. There was only, obviously, because they're open about it, that there's proof that they published it to the internet. And that's not enough to go after WikiLeaks. That's because what happens is every media outlet reports on the same things. Even the DNC emails, they reported on the same thing. So the DNC lawsuit is basically saying, screw all that. We completely acknowledge that WikiLeaks, that we just haven't evidence that they published this stuff, but it doesn't matter. And I don't know. I mean, like, none of this stuff was classified, not in terms of like the emails. So I just don't know. And it was in the public. It was in the public interest to know what was going on behind the scenes of the DNC. Hillary was running for president, so I think you could very easily argue that we did need to see those emails. It wasn't just a nothing burger. There was a lot of revelations in there that showed that they weren't honest people. So I think it's just ridiculous, because Obama understood this, and yet we're having to have this conversation now because of the DNC lawsuit, which, again, I'll make the point, like, we should be focusing our attention on adopting a progressive platform, not this fear-mongering, this, basically petty attack because you lost a layup election to a reality TV star. Like, own up to what you did, really. Like, it's just, it's saddening because the Democrats should be better than this, but they aren't, and it's just disappointing. I don't know what else to say other than the fact that, the fact that Obama didn't act on this just shows that they are moving to the right. It just keeps happening across all different issues now. And I feel like we should come to expect that from now on, because they've shown no signs that they want to be a progressive party. So it's not, to me, it's not a matter of like convincing them. It's a matter of getting them out of office and replacing them with real hardworking Americans who care about everyday people, basically.